So it's just all their plots they have in place to put into motion these elements. And so their embassy plots, for example, are they have some in Africa, and then they have some in Europe, and then they have some in the Middle East, all for a different purpose. The Middle East is to push us out for the caliphates. The Africa is to push us out for the caliphates. And then the Europe, right, is just to go after, and then that'll go in with the homeland attack too. But the Europe is just to target the U.S. for its involvement in the Middle East.
Do they have a priority list?
They don't exactly have a priority list. Like, they're all waves and some can be concurrent. What matters is how long it takes to train attackers, right? So the Hamas attacks was like less than 1,500 guys, right? They actually initially planned to train them from August 7th, 2022 to October 7th, 2022. They ended up pushing the attack a year, and so they ended up with more training, which helped the attackers because of Zawahiri's assassination. So then the U.S. homeland, for example, they want to use 1,000 terrorists, right? So that took time to put the 1,000 through the pipeline. Syria, they trained 10,000 terrorists to send to Syria. It takes time to put 10,000 terrorists through the pipeline, right? So it depends on the size and the camp capacity and then the type of training, right? Are you putting them through suicide bomber training? That's its own camps, and that's about 20% of the camps they run. Are you putting them through advanced urban warfare?
You know, these guys, I remember, I think it was you that posted a video of an Al-Qaeda training camp, and it was almost like a display. It looked like a well-done YouTube video of skills. Is that common?
Yeah, but that's a step down. So
that was really good.
That's Taliban. Those are the Taliban camps. We can't get those kind of videos out of the Al-Qaeda camps. As you can imagine, you can't even bring phones into the Al-Qaeda camps. So Al-Qaeda is even a level above those.
I mean, I'm going to overlay that video for the audience to see just how sharp these guys are getting. I mean, that's really good. Well, when I saw that, it scared the shit out of me.
Remember, their life is they train all the time.
Yeah.
So if that's all you're doing all day long, I mean, you're going to get really competent at it. And then they have different emotions behind it too, and, different beliefs.
God told me that Al-Qaeda is basically predicting that the casualty count will be between 50 and 60,000 Americans dead. Am I wrong on that?
So I don't know the count that they're predicting. What I do know is Al-Qaeda trained and sent 1,000 attackers.
1,000 attackers. When did they come through?
So they finished training and they deployed them. Now, depending on how they come through, it could take different times, right? So the fastest I've seen an Afghan leave Afghanistan and get over the border illegally is about 3 weeks. Now, if you get a tourist visa and a Saudi's passport, he can fly the day after he gets his visa, right? So it depends, because they are fine getting people in however they can get them in, and they actually prefer legal immigration, as you can imagine, because they want basically the attackers to sit here and wait. If they're legal, they're not going to raise any alarm bells.
So wait a minute. I just want to clarify. You are 100% certain that there are 1,000 plus Al-Qaeda trained fighters within the United States borders?
Well, Al-Qaeda says they trained and deployed 1,000 for this attack. First off, I think there's more than 1,000 Al-Qaeda members in the United States. But for the homeland attack, that number is based on what Al-Qaeda is saying. So they could exaggerate it. However, they did have about 1,400 in the Hamas attack. So the number is not off from what they did in the first round of attacks.
How old is this information?
I mean, it's ongoing. So the training's already done, right? So all the training info is now old because they trained all the homeland attackers, if that makes sense. So like next week, you're not going to get info of a homeland attacker probably at a terrorist camp because it's already done. So all this has been in the last year.
So it's been over a year. It's been a year.
Because this was a continuation. So they planned October 7th first, and then they rolled into planning this after. Embassy attacks are next, in my opinion.
What are they waiting for the embassies?
I don't think they're waiting. I think it took time to train them. They've now approved them, and they've now moved into the operational stage.
What about the U.S.?
So the U.S., from what we've seen, I told you about the camps, right? That there's the advanced urban warfare. So we think it's going to look like October 7th, but it's actually based on, and October 7th was probably also based on it. It's based on the Mumbai attacks that occurred 15 years ago. They did a number, it's called swarming attacks. They did a number of attacks in New Delhi, at a hotel, Taj Mahal, I believe it was called, at like basically the train station, etc. The interesting thing about it, and this is why they're going to employ it now, is those terrorists were given kind of like latitude. One, they could change the location they were attacking, and they could change the modus operandi they were using. So for example, when they went into the train station, it was supposed to be a bombing. When they got in there, they said, wow, we can kill more people just shooting them than putting the bomb together, and they shot them. Another thing that they did is in real time, information was being passed to them. So when they were in the Taj Mahal, they were being told what was on the press and what the police were doing, and they changed basically some of their movements in the hotel to make the attack last longer, okay? So this is the part that's going to be different, right? So Al-Qaeda always wants to innovate when it does its next attack, right? So I've already told you about the innovation of the suicide vests. Well, do you know we really haven't had a suicide bombing in the United States ever? There's the Nashville guy who did the strange, blew himself up in the car early in the morning when no one was around. That's kind of it.
The AT&T building?
Yep. So we have not had a man walk up to a building with a suicide vest on in the United States. Americans don't understand this. Al-Qaeda knows this, right? So this is new and innovative, especially now. You don't have to walk upside of the building. You can walk in the building because of the advancement of the vest. The other thing is, in the United States, we haven't had Fideian attackers. Do you know what this is? The concept is the terrorist fights to the death. So he's not exactly a suicide bomber, but he will fight till either all of us are dead or all of his people are dead, right? So this can go on for multiple days, you know, like the plan was for Mumbai, for example. So we think it's going to be a swarming attack, right? Multiple different attacks at one time across multiple cities. We think there will be suicide bombers just because some of the attackers went through suicide bomber training and they have these vests, right? And then we think there's these Fideian attackers who will carry on until they're killed.
Let me just rephrase that. So these guys are trained, and we already overlaid the video of their training, and they are going to fight until they're killed.
Yes.
There's no stopping them.
Exactly. And that matters, right?
What kind of places do you think they're going to target?
So this is what's complicated. So Al-Qaeda's preference, as you can imagine, is symbols of the U.S. or anything that causes economic damage, right? So Capitol is a great symbol. Capitol was actually I think the Capitol is, a lot of people are targeting it, but the Capitol was in their propaganda just as 9/11 when they were memorializing 9/11, right? So the Capitol matters. I feel like bridges or any kind of public transportation always matters because it puts costs against us and it causes fear. But here's where it gets complicated. So remember, the terrorists might have their goal is they're going to attack the metro in DC, right? But remember, some of these terrorists are going to be ISIS. And remember, they can change location. So the ISIS guy might go down the metro and say, there's not many people down here. I'll kill 20, but there's a event going on. I'm going to go up there, right? And because ISIS is a little different. ISIS just wants mass casualty. So it's going to be interesting how it works with terrorists that came from different backgrounds and when they get choice.
So some of these terrorist organizations are looking for very strategic stuff like U.S. Capitol, you know, basically U.S. governmental infrastructure and elites. And then on the other hand, you have what I'm used to seeing when we were over there. They just look for the easiest, biggest target because they want to kill the most amount of people in the quickest amount of time and get the most press out of it.
Yep.
And so that would lead me to believe universities, churches, stadiums,
farmers markets, those type of things.
How many people, how many fighters do you think we can expect in each attack?
Well, the 1,000 is all of them. So we're calling it's an Al-Qaeda planned attack, but within those 1,000 terrorists, some of them are ISIS because they want ISIS to be blamed. We have a theory on it. I hate to throw out theories. We think the actual, like,
It's the first time I think you've ever thrown out a theory.
I know. I just send people like, she's crazy. I think the more of the fighter types are going to be ISIS, because then if they're caught, then they talk, I'm ISIS. I think more of the suicide bombers are going to be Al-Qaeda.
Will these attacks do you think these attacks will happen simultaneously throughout the United States? Or will they be one day here, next day here, another one over here next week?
So they want them coordinated. I don't know if coordinated means all at the same time, or if coordinated means we do it Monday, we do it Tuesday, we do it Wednesday, we do it Thursday, we do it Friday, just do 5 straight days. And I think there's a real disconnect in the U.S. Like, the U.S. is like, yeah, well, we haven't had terrorist attacks here. Yeah, because we were over there killing them. And now they plot, they train. We don't hit the camps. We used to bomb the camps. So Americans don't understand that those attacks didn't happen here because you and I were overseas stopping them.
Yeah.
Right? And so they're like, yeah, it's fine. And they downplay it. It's like, we've been saving you for 20 years. Nobody's doing it anymore. So you better learn to save yourself, right?
Yeah.
So it's a very frustrating thing, too, because you can't get any support for this. Oh, terrorism is just a political thing, and they just try to bring fear in you. And it's like, what are you talking about? So it's very frustrating.
Well, that's Americans. That's how they are, man. How certain are you think we'll see something in 2025?
I'm certain we'll either have embassy attacks in 2025 or the Homeland attack, or both.
At least 10 people are dead and dozens more injured after city officials say a man intentionally drove a pickup truck into a crowd of people. This happened on the world-famous Bourbon Street overnight as people were celebrating the new year. It was around 3:15 in the morning local time. Officials say the man drove around barricades and hurtled down the street in very intentional behavior before opening fire on police officers. 2 officers were hit by gunfire. They are in stable condition in the hospital. CBS News has learned the suspect is dead, shot and killed by police. Now, officials say a long gun was recovered from the scene, and according to an investigative reporter with our affiliate WWL, it had a silencer, or more specifically, a suppressive device attached to it. Several potential explosive devices were also recovered near the scene and are being analyzed. The FBI is investigating this as a terrorist attack, and 2 sources familiar with the investigation tell CBS News the deceased suspect was wearing body armor. The truck that plowed through that crowd appeared to be flying a large black flag from the rear bumper, according to CBS News reviews of images. And law enforcement sources tell CBS News that investigators are looking into whether the flag is an ISIS flag or possibly tied to another foreign terror organization.
One who posted videos expressing his desire to kill and his inspiration from ISIS.
Search for answers after the horrific and deadly terror attack in New Orleans. The FBI now believes the suspect, Shamsuddin Jabbar, acted alone and that he was, quote, 100% inspired by ISIS.